It was really our own little attempt to discern the correct political engagement, the posture of Christians during a national election. One of the things that's fascinating to me is how political the Gospels are. And it's riddled with language that's ripped right out of the imperial lexicon. And so it's very politically subversive. And certainly that was true in the early church. They were accused of being insurrectionists. And so every time the early Christians said Jesus is Lord, they were saying Caesar is not. And it was a political declaration. So that's what Jesus for President is about. It's kind of saying, it was as radical 2,000 years ago to say Jesus is Lord or Savior as it would be to say Jesus is my Commander-in-Chief or my King or my President. Because it has to do with our political identity and where we place our hope. The whole red letter language came actually from an interview with this country music DJ down in Nashville, Tennessee, who said, I read the Bible and there's a lot of stuff in there. You know, some of it's hard for me to understand, some of it I love. And he said, but when you get to the New Testament, the words of Jesus are in red, and I love the red stuff. And he said, you guys seem to like the red stuff too. You should call yourselves red letter Christians. So that language kind of took off for some of us, because what we began to realize is that sadly a lot of our Christianity, or the stuff proclaimed as Christianity, doesn't always look like Christ. The Barna Research Group went around the United States and asked young non-Christians, what do you think of when you hear the word Christian? And the top 3 answers were anti-gay, judgmental, and hypocritical. That's not what people walked away with when they met Jesus. They didn't walk away going, wow, why doesn't he like the gay folks? You know, but Jesus said, they'll know that you are Christians by your love. So that's really what we're after. We want a Christianity that looks like Jesus again. I do believe that in the early church that there was such a radical view of the world that it really did look like a revolution. It's not an easy story. I mean, Jesus knew the pain, the suffering, the inequality, the crap of this world from the moment he was born in the manger until he died on a cross. And that's what crosses were for. Crosses were for insurrectionists. They were for failed messiahs. They were for people who proclaimed or threatened the political power and the status quo. That's who you put on a cross. And so the triumph over the cross is stunningly beautiful. What Colossians says is that on the cross, Jesus made a spectacle of the powers of this world. And so what I see in the cross is Jesus taking on the very worst that humanity can do to someone. The insults, the bigotry, the meanness, the hatred, and he's nailed on the cross. But as he's nailed on the cross, he looks into the very people that are hating on him, and he says, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. And when he rises from the dead, it was the most beautiful promise that life can conquer death, that love can triumph over hatred. And it's in light of that cross that we live. When Jesus is asked, what's this whole thing about? He says it's about loving God and loving people. That doesn't mean it's easy. Mother Teresa said to follow Jesus is simple, but it's not easy. It's that kind of love that if we really say to love our neighbor as ourselves means that we should rest uncomfortably when we got brothers and sisters that are freezing on the streets and sleeping in cardboard boxes, or whose stomachs are growling because they don't have enough food to eat. To love our neighbor as ourselves messes with us, because we realize that that's my brother, that's my sister. As Dostoevsky said, the love that we're talking about is not the sentimental love of storybooks and fairy tales, but it's the harsh and dreadful love that keeps you up at night. It's that harsh and dreadful love that would lead you to die on a cross even for people that are nailing you to it, you know. So I think that's what we're about at the simple way is to try to live in the way of Jesus, and to every day try to love our neighbor as ourselves, and to catch each other when we fall short of that dream. I love how Frederick Buechner said we've got to take our deepest passions and connect them to the world's deepest pain. I think that's what vocation is about, sort of finding our place or our purpose in the world. Karl Barth said we got to read the Bible in one hand, but we got to read the newspaper in the other. As we're thinking about, what we're doing in college and what we're gonna, do after college, the real question is not just, am I going to be a doctor or a scientist or a lawyer, but what kind of doctor or scientist or lawyer. I see young folks everywhere that are using their gifts in beautiful ways that interrupt the patterns of injustice. I even met a massage therapist the other day that she said, I don't want to just be a massage therapist for rich folks that can afford it. She had become friends with a lot of women that are homeless, and many of them victims of the sex trafficking, so they're walking up and down the streets every day, and she said they get tired, sore feet. Of course, they don't have a massage therapist, and she said, so I became their massage therapist. Every week she opens her clinic up to these women. They come in, she said, I give them the best foot massages they can ever imagine. And she's a different kind of massage therapist. That's the question I invite Whitworth students to think about. It's not just what are you going to do when you grow up, but who are you becoming? And not just am I going to be a lawyer or a doctor, but what kind of lawyer or doctor am I going to be?